In today's video, we have some updated NHL trade rumors focusing on four teams. We're looking at the New York Rangers, Chicago Blackhawks, San Jose Sharks, and St. Louis Blues. Plus, we also have a health update on Senators forward Scott Sabourin, who had a very scary incident the other day versus the Bruins. Plus, I also want to take a look at some coaches who do not have a contract beyond this year and very well might not return and could be in trouble. We'll discuss all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news updates, and I want to kick things off, first of all, talking about the health update regarding Ottawa Senators forward Scott Sabourin, who, as I mentioned, had a very scary incident the other day against the Boston Bruins. Now, in case you didn't see what happened, he basically went in to hit Boston Bruins forward David Backes, and when he did, they collided helmets, and the helmet of Backes actually caught Sabourin pretty hard in the face. It looked like he was knocked out before he ever hit the ice, but he went down, hit the ice pretty hard, ended up getting stretchered off the ice. As he was leaving, he did kind of give a bit of a thumbs up to let people know he was awake. We did later see an update that he was moving all his arms and legs and was conscious at the hospital, but remained in Boston Hospital for observation. Now the latest update indicates that he has returned back home to Ottawa, where he is now under the care of just the team physicians, and he'll obviously be out injured on IR for a period of time. He does have a broken nose. He had a very much of a black eye, some other cuts on his face. I would be surprised if he didn't have a concussion. They haven't come out and said that, but considering how hard the collision was and then hitting the ice, I would be quite surprised if he wasn't concussed. But I guess only time will tell. But I would fully suspect he'll be out for a decent period of time for the Senators before he'll be able to be recovered and make a return. But at least things are progressing in a positive way. And it does look as though, at least as of right now, we have a full belief that he'll be okay longer term, which is great news. Now, as I mentioned as well, we have three NHL coaches who are in the final year of their contracts and do not have contracts beyond the current season. All these teams as well are kind of in different spots, but they're all kind of struggling, not doing overly well in the standings. And you can't help but wonder if some of these guys might be the first coaching casualties of this season. Now, the three coaches in question are Detroit Red Wings coach Jeff Blashill, Peter DeBoer of the San Jose Sharks, and of course Bruce Boudreau of the Minnesota Wild. Now, we've seen the Minnesota Wild go through a GM change recently. Of course, Bill Guerin had no hand in hiring Bruce Boudreau, even though Boudreau has a great history. He's been a great coach. The Wild are certainly a team that's struggling this year, and even though Boudreau has a good overall history and a great body of work overall throughout his career, Guerin wouldn't be surprising to see him go in a different direction to kind of change things up. There's a lot of players that are difficult to trade, but changing the coach is certainly an easy move, especially when they don't have a contract beyond the current year. So I guess we'll see. I would not be shocked to find out if Boudreau finishes the year in Minnesota. Maybe they make that move afterwards. Maybe they don't. It kind of depends on what's out there and what's available for other coaching options, but I wouldn't be shocked to see that happen. Same with Jeff Blashill in Detroit. Of course, the Red Wings have been going through a bit of a rebuild. Ken Holland extended Blashill's contract before Steve Yzerman was brought back as general manager, so we'll see how Yzerman feels about Blashill as being the coach, whether or not he's the right guy to continue leading this rebuild as they move forward. So that'll be another interesting situation to watch. And the Red Wings, not under a ton of pressure right now. They really weren't expected to be a playoff team this year. The rebuild's continuing, so there's not a ton of pressure there, like I said. So I wouldn't be shocked, like Boudreau, to see Blashill possibly even finish out the year. I wouldn't necessarily think he's in danger of being fired just yet, but it will be interesting to see if they decide to bring him back or go in a different direction. The other one, though, in the case of Peter DeBoer in San Jose, that's a little bit more of an interesting situation because the San Jose Sharks are greatly underperforming right now. They were expected to be much more of a Western Conference contender, and instead they find themselves in the Western Conference basement. They've lost their last 5 games. Things are not looking good. They got a lot of expensive, talented hockey players on that team that are just not living up to their contracts and the hype right now, and it's putting them down, like I said, in the basement of the standings. So could we see general manager Doug Wilson make a coaching change mid-season where DeBoer doesn't have a longer-term contract? It is a possibility, but it's typically not something we've seen out of Doug Wilson in the past. Would not be surprised to see him make a trade first rather than fire the coach. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens, but obviously the San Jose Sharks are certainly a very interesting team to watch right now and see if they can rebound and get back at it. Obviously, after watching the St. Louis Blues last year be in last place up until January and see them go on to win the Stanley Cup, I think some of these teams are not panicking as quickly as they might have in the past. Obviously, anything can happen. They can have an awesome second half of the year, make the playoffs, and once you're in, as they say, anything can happen. But those three coaches are certainly going to be interesting to watch. It won't cost the teams a lot of money if they decide to make a move mid-season. But like I said, in some of these cases, wouldn't be surprising to see them make it through. But in DeBoer's case, that's going to be the most interesting out of the three to watch, in my opinion. Now let's jump over and take a look at some of the latest NHL trade rumors I want to talk about today. We might as well stay with the team we just finished talking about here, and that's the San Jose Sharks. Obviously, like I said, they've lost 5 in a row, and there's bound to be some changes coming at some point. Whether if it's not the coach, it's going to be on the roster. Clearly, this team needs some changes and need to do something quickly. I know for the most part, there's a lot of players there they believe in, but when you're losing this much this early, something's got to give somewheres. Obviously, a change in goal would be helpful if they could either move Martin Jones or Aaron Dell and bring in a different goaltender as a replacement to try to get things going that way would be nice. But it's clearly to see, in my opinion, that they're really missing former captain Joe Pavelski and even Jonas Donskoy as well, who provided some decent secondary scoring for that forward group. They're just not quite the same forward group that they were before. Erik Karlsson's not having a fantastic year. Defensively, their decor, even though they got a lot of money tied up, they're just not getting it done. Goaltending's failing. But it's going to be interesting to see how Doug Wilson plays this out. They have a lot of contracts. Like I said, they're long-term, big money deals. They're going to be tough to move, and I know they're not going to want to do that. But how do they use their remaining cap space with their other depth pieces? Try to shake things up. It's not going to be any easy move. Now, taking a look now at the New York Rangers, longtime veteran defenseman Mark Stahl has recently been a healthy scratch, and there's some new reports wondering if his time with the Rangers might be coming to an end. Now, he's still under contract for this year and for next, but there's a lot of defensemen moving ahead of him on the depth chart as well, and many believe that really this time could be coming to an end sooner than later, whether or not be a trade or potential buyout coming next offseason if he does make it through the season with the New York Rangers. If they were to make a trade with him right now, obviously they'd likely have to retain some salary or add some kind of sweetener to the deal. There certainly will be plenty of teams as we approach the NHL trade deadline looking for veteran defenseman help, but obviously it's going to depend on the price between their cap hit as well as what it's going to take to acquire them. But it is believed that the Rangers would certainly like to find him a new home. He would have to agree to it as well, where he does have a no-trade clause, so that's going to make things a little bit complicated. But if Mark Stahl does make it through the season with the Rangers, I think he'd be a prime candidate for a buyout come next season as the changing of the guard continues here with the New York Rangers. Of course, longtime goaltender Henrik Lundqvist will be entering the final year of his deal as well, paying him over $8 million next year. So it'll be interesting to see if anything changes in regards to him finishing out his career with the Blue Shirts as well. Now, sticking with New York for a moment, New York Post writer Larry Brooks had a recent article discussing some thoughts on some players that the St. Louis Blues actually might go after, one of them being a New York Ranger player in Chris Kreider, but he also wondered if Taylor Hall might be on that list as well. With Vladimir Tarasenko being out for about 5 months or more and being able to use long-term injury reserve, they certainly would have the ability to go after another high-priced forward who could certainly help replace what he normally brings to the lineup. And there's been no shortage of question marks over Taylor Hall's future due to the fact that he's not signed to a longer-term extension yet with New Jersey. Of course, his comments the other day about battling against the fans and being booed on home ice when it's a tie game and when the power play is not doing too bad. Basically, due to a lot of impatience that the fans are showing their team because of their recent struggles and poor record so far this year, it certainly didn't sound like comments of a player who was planning on sticking around with the franchise for an extended period of time. So really, ever since that interview, there's been a lot of talk that really does Taylor Hall already checked out on New Jersey? Will he not be back? Will the Devils look to trade him sooner than later? And I think a lot of that is premature. I don't see them moving him just yet. Obviously, I think Ray Shero is going to make every attempt to sign him, get things turned around to keep him in the fold. They do have some more time here to be patient with this before they have to make a big decision, but it is believed that if the Devils go down that road that they think they're going to trade him, that they're not going to wait until the deadline, that they're going to try to get ahead of things to kind of set the market with a big trade, possibly a month or two ahead, maybe even as early as Christmas time, depending on where the Devils are at with their team and how negotiations go with Hall and his representative Darren Ferris. So I guess we will see here, but certainly Larry Brooks might be onto something that perhaps the Blues could be looking to acquire a high-price forward, whether it be Taylor Hall or Chris Kreider in New York, or maybe some others around the league that could become available later on as teams start to struggle and as the playoff picture starts to become a little bit more clear here. Now, I also want to take a quick look at the Chicago Blackhawks. They recently called up to one of their top prospects, defenseman Adam Boqvist, who made his NHL debut, scored a goal. He's looking pretty good so far. And there's been some talk about defenseman Erik Gustafsson possibly being on the trade block. Now, this is another case of perhaps a situation where the Blackhawks should have sold high, where he put up 60 points last year, hit some career highs. There was some talk maybe during the offseason he could be traded. Of course, that never came to be. Not really sure if GM Stan Bowman made an attempt to move him or not. He is in the final final year of his contract. He's not making a lot of money, so certainly not difficult in that sense. Like I said, after last year, putting up 17 goals and 60 points, you would think there'd be a lot of teams interested in taking a look at him for a potential contract extension as well if he would fit in with their NHL club. But given the fact with the remaining other blue liners like Calvin DeHaan and Ollie Matta, Connor Murphy, all on reasonable contracts, you've got longtime veterans in Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook with no move clauses as well. And even though there's been a lot of talk about Seabrook lately, I think his contract might be the worst in the NHL to trade. So as much as there might be some interest on both sides for a potential move, I really don't see it happening. It would be very complicated and very difficult to pull off. So therefore, I think the odds of it happening are low, which kind of pushes Gustafsson out of the lineup if Boqvist can stick around and play. They have plenty of other great prospect defensemen as well coming up in their system over the next year or two that is going to be ready to jump in. So there's certainly, like I said, pushes them out of the lineup. And Gustafsson could turn into another trade bait piece for the Blackhawks to try to improve other areas of their team, especially in the forward group is certainly a possibility as they try to shake things up and improve things longer term as well. So I would not be surprised to see GM Stan Bowman possibly shop this defenseman and try to find a new home for him ahead of the NHL trade deadline this season. So that is all your news and notes for today. Of course, as always, we'll know your thoughts and opinions and everything down in the comment section. So certainly let me know what your thoughts are on some of these potential moves we might see, and we'll continue the conversation down in the comments. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.